Hey guys, this is Joe, founder and host of Startuprad.io. As you guys may already know, I've run this podcast full-time since January 2021. I'm very happy to announce that Anchor FM is my sponsor for this podcast. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free and it's easy to use, even for a newbie. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Welcome to Startuprad.io, your podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Welcome everybody, this is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast and YouTube blog from Germany. Right now I do have a little bit of a special for you, celebrating almost 70,000 subscribers to all of the podcasts that I'm running. You may listen to this on Startuprad.io as well as Fintech Germany by Startuprad.io, and then there are other podcasts by Startuprad.io or Tech Startups Germany. They are all run by me, and adding all of them up, I have almost reached 70,000 subscribers, and at the point this is going to be published, that is the issue for 70,000 subscribers to celebrate a little bit. This time I do have therefore someone here who performs a double duty. Hey William, how you doing?
Hi, Joe. I'm absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for having me.
Totally my pleasure. And you're here for two reasons. The first one is you are an entrepreneur. You founded your own company. We will talk about this quite a bit, as well as you are a headhunter, now focusing on the insurance area, helping actually insurtechs to recruit senior people from insurance companies, and that's, I do believe, also something we'll talk about in detail, especially how startups can get senior people from corporates. But let's first talk a little bit about you. Who are you and what are you doing?
Thank you, Joe. Well, who am I? Well, there's a big question, philosophical question, but I'll do my best to answer it in a practical way. My name is William Laitinen. I am the Managing Director, CEO here of Exige International. I've been a headhunter now for, almost 20 years. So I started out back in the late 1990s, I like to say, when music was great, but fashion was terrible. And I'm sure you can identify with some of that bad fashion choices, Joe. Certainly the stuff I was rocking out in my teens. But I was pretty terrible. But I started out in a great time in headhunting, probably in the golden age, the end of the golden age of headhunting, when just before the dot-com bust happened, so boom and bust, that period. I worked in a lot of for the big IT systems integrators of the day, Sun Microsystems, Microsoft, Logica, EDS, IBM, all of those organizations. Some of them exist, some of them don't. I had a great time working across Europe, working across that tech scene. And then after 3 years of doing the job and finding out I was actually all right at it, I decided to set my own company up in 2001. And thus, Exige International was born. It was a classically bootstrapped organization. I had a bit of cash in my pocket from commission. I was sleeping on my cousin's couch, and I had a telephone and a laptop, and I was trying to make it work. And that's how it started for me. So, when you introduced me earlier, I have a deep affinity with anybody who's starting a business and trying to make it work themselves. So that's what happened for me. And then I focused in the 2000s on working in the strategy consulting sector for financial services focus. So I really got an experience of working with some of the toughest hiring organizations for people. So it's where I really learned my trade. And At this moment, Joe, I tell my Game of Thrones analogy really that I was a summer child in the 2000s. I had never known a winter. Money was easy, always an upward bull market. I really thought I was the king of the world. So at this point, and then I say the winter came for me, and it came in the shape of the global financial crisis. And any of you who have watched Game of Thrones will know the character Jon Snow. I'm going to call myself Jon Snow because obviously, everybody wants to identify with Jon Snow. But I was the guy standing on the ice wall looking down at the army of the dead coming because I was in the perfectly worst place you could be when the financial crisis hit. I was doing financial institution M&A. I was doing financial services strategy consulting. I didn't do a deal for 18 months. We moved house, just got a mortgage, my wife was pregnant. It was a very, very difficult time. I tell this story, part of my story, if I'm honest, Joe, because I think most entrepreneurs will know that it never goes right. There's the big, great stories you see in the media where everything's going perfect, and they're getting all the money they want and all the success they want. But most founders will know that is really not the case, how life goes. Most people will know that's not how life goes. It certainly wasn't for me. But that led to Switzerland in 2010 because I started working more and more in insurance. That led to a period of my life where I've been incredibly happy with the work I've been doing. Lots of ups and downs, work with great clients. I spend my time between the UK and Switzerland covering the Western European market. And I am working in partnership with my wife. So my wife, Fiona, is my business partner, amazing woman. I have 3 beautiful children. I work with a great team in Matthew, Sam, Emma, and myself and my wife. We've got a small boutique team. And we have a cat called Tiger. And that is me, pretty much. And I will correct one thing. We do also work with big corporates and supplying to them the insurtech units of those big companies as well. But we also work with the insurtechs looking to hire as well. So there you go. That's me, William Laitinen.
Very, very nice introduction. Everybody, of course, would love to see Tiger in the interview, but I'm not sure if we can arrange that. We may tell the people thank you for making the time again, second time one day, because last time I did have an issue with my microphone and we did an awesome interview for approximately 40 minutes and then I realized, damn, there was not even a beep on my side. Driver update and everything was screwed up. Anyway, the thing is, what came to my mind is when you've been talking about everything works overnight. I do believe you have to work very hard for many years in order to be able to become an overnight success, and I do believe many of those people are actually doing it, but they don't tell. Talking a little bit more about what we said before we started our first interview, because you promised me the only thing that could happen is actually a squirrel in the bag, right?
Yes, it's very true. It's the only thing that could happen would be a squirrel in
that is pretty good. Talking about Game of Thrones, for everybody who doesn't know it, it's recommended to watch it, but basically it's a fantasy world and everything goes fine, and then at one point the dead are starting to conquer the living, and from all summer, all year long, it turns into very long winter. That is where winter is actually coming from. And actually the dragons in Game of Thrones are actually made partly here in Frankfurt, because the special effect company Pixelmondo, which is headquartered here in Frankfurt, been in charge of the dragons, and I do believe they did a really good job. Let's talk a little bit about the winter, what it taught you about entrepreneurship, and maybe yourself as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really good lesson for everyone to learn as early on as possible, is that you are going to be facing problems in your team, in your organization. That's why organizations right now are so concentrated on resilience as a quality that they're looking to hire for. Resilience is a key word that you hear throughout the corporate world as a value that they're looking to hire for in key people. So if I had to, again, and most founders will identify this, or young people who are looking to start companies really need to be aware that they're going to be facing a whole heap of problems and challenges as they start to try and figure out whatever they're trying to figure out. And so it comes back to this idea really of, who you want to hire is really, really important in overcoming the problems that you're going to be facing, right? And so if I'm going to learn that lesson, and a lesson I'll be passing on to my children, and a lesson I pass on to anybody I mentor, is that you need to be prepared for the problems that will come inevitably, and make sure you build a team around you who will help you overcome those problems. And focusing on people who share your values, share your mission, who will be resilient and will stand next to you when those problems come is absolutely the route to success. So there's my little piece of philosophy, if you want, and certainly what I see being a successful recipe for other organizations.
Talking a little bit about how you actually came to the relatively new insurtech world, we may tell the people that we worked together back in the days. I do believe it was 2011, but at this time you have not been an insurtech guy, right?
No, I don't really think it was a thing back then, actually. Insurtech, I certainly kind of didn't think of the term as such. My interest is that I always work in the most exciting sectors, and I'm looking to marry a couple of things, right? So purpose is really important to me. I want to work with pioneers who are doing interesting things, and I want to work at the forefront of technology. So purpose, pioneers, and technology is where I want to be. And right now, I can't think of a better sector than insurtech for marrying up those three fundamental qualities to explore interesting ideas, to create great companies, and to utilize technology in a way that can be really, really useful. And of course, all of that can have purpose as well in insurance. You're protecting people, helping cover risk, helping to encourage entrepreneurship, for merchants to take risks, for individuals, companies, etc. So yeah, that's why I'm in insurtech right now in insurance. I think it's a great place to be, and it can really do some exciting stuff.
We may tell the people that, of course, everybody knows, like the insurance broker from around the corner, they have a reputation to be very boring in insurance company. But actually, when you get more and more into insurance, like insure valuable pictures, paintings, classical paintings worth millions of dollars. If you go into insurance for against kidnapping, or even kidnapping by aliens, if you go into the problems global working reinsurance companies are running in by having to invest really globally, that is when it's getting really excited. But I don't think the insurtechs are not there yet necessarily, but I do believe they are on their way there. That said, what's special for you in insurance?
What's special for me in insurance is a big question. Do you know what I love about this sector right now, and why I think it's appropriate to talk about it, is that it's facing an existential threat to its business model. I think there's a recognition that look at the way reinsurance is being squeezed. Look at the entrance of new, smaller players who can be incredibly nimble, can create products and distribute them within social networks like never before. All of that, those examples are just changing the industry. And you have an industry at the same time, though, that has capital. A lot of these organizations have money to deploy by the nature of the insurance business model. And so then you get this if we're in this moment where they recognize this inflection, and big organizations are starting to invest in it. They're starting to invest also in smaller companies, and the VC money is now starting to flow. You can look at the German market for the first time, like WeFox attracting huge amounts of international capital into a German startup, InsurTech, becoming a unicorn. It's fantastically exciting to see what's happening. And on top of that, the culture of insurance is much more inclusive than, say, banking. I've always found banking to be much more combative as a sector, less collaborative. And so I think that's a unique thing that insurance has to offer, why I'm here. And so I'm seeing all of these cool companies popping up, topics around parametric risk, the development of new operating models, bringing in AI and claims automation and chatbots. You've got whole new distribution models. They're kind of moving in of the big car companies and like Tesla and probably some of the big German manufacturers and offering technology. So, everywhere you turn, you see an opportunity to create a really cool insurance product and to distribute that. So that's why I'm here. And I like the collaborative nature of the industry as well. And that's where I think real magic happens, is when you get great people coming together doing great things. And I'd love to talk more about, that's why when you're out there in the market as a startup, what you've got to be really careful about what you're trying to attract. But that's why I'm here.
Yes, you're already building the bridge, because I do believe an important part of what we want to talk about today is hiring the right people, especially the first people. I do believe they're very important in your opinion. If you have like 4 or 5 people to hire the next person, at one point when you're a startup, when you've grown, you need to hire people from corporate positions, because you will need them. You'll also turn into a corporate, and that's the point when it gets interesting, when we need people like you. But let's talk about the first hires, because when we did the first recording of this year, you spoke about how important the very early hires are.
Oh God, yes. You ask any founder, Joe, like where they pinpoint their success or their failure, and they will talk about the founders and the first group of people. The culture that gets established in those core nebulous groups of people who join the organization, the first 5 or 10 people. So if I'm asked a question like, you want to select a co-founder or want to select your first CTO or CMO or key other people, what do I look for? All right. Well, first of all, you need to define your values very clearly. You need to get a set of language so you can define the values that you have as an organization, and then be relentless in identifying for them. Okay. So here at Exige, we have 4 main values that I look to identify for, and feel free to steal these, by the way. Okay. These are things that I have found to these 4 values identify with quality. So we have integrity. So important. The person has to be trustworthy, has to have integrity. Humility is the second one. Really important that they are able to control their ego and they can think about the group. And we need someone to be assertive, that they can stand up for their ideas and the ideas of their team, and then resilient. So they need to be able to overcome. They need to deal with problems, get back on the horse, get back at it. So we've got integrity, humility, assertiveness, resilience. Those are my 4 qualities that I look for. You could add in curiosity and other things, but those are really the core 4. The other thing that I'll say, once you've got those 4 values locked down, then what I'm looking for is I'd be encouraging you to seek for cognitive difference. Okay. And what I mean by cognitive difference is you want them to be smart. Ideally, you want the person you're joining to be smarter than you. Actually, that's a challenge for people, but it's true. I love hiring people who are smarter than me. Wow, you want to turbocharge in your environment, get someone smarter than you. But also what I want difference. So either hiring somebody from different ethnic background, different gender, different demographic, all of these types of difference allow someone to tackle a problem in a different way. So that is really important for you, particularly if you're looking to overcome problems, and also just to see the world in a way that you would not, and to really cover some blind spots that you probably have that you're not even aware that you have. So cognitive difference, values, lay them down early, be relentless in the pursuit of them. And that once you hire that core people like that, you will have a team that you can go to the wall with, that will tackle problems, will come up with amazing solutions, and will stick around. And that will be how your business will flourish. Can be easier said than done, but you can interview for those qualities. And that's what I would be training, teaching, encouraging, cajoling every founder to do when it comes to selecting their first few people.
How would you recommend to approach hiring? For example, you have a team of 5 people, a startup newly founded, and now you're looking for a CTO. How would you recommend to approach that? The only thing you're not permitted to say is hiring you.
Damn, there we go. How would I suggest to do this? Well, there's a little bit of a way around to this. Okay, so we did some research because what's really important to us here is we can understand how to get people to leave companies to join our clients. So we want to understand what motivates people, right? So the reason people leave their job for 2 reasons, logic and emotion, right? Logic and emotion are the 2 reasons why people go to leave or make any decision, any buying decision for that matter. So when it comes to getting that CTO who is in demand, who is highly sought after, you've got to understand what is actually going on in their brain, not in you, but what's going on with them. So we know there are 5 main reasons. We looked back at 300 hours of interviews and we could identify 5 main reasons why people leave their job in 92% of the instances. So those are power, impact, learning, work-life balance, and teamwork. Those are the 5 reasons. The other 8% is to do with restructuring, right? Now, listeners may be listening going, well, actually, hang on, I've always heard that it's your manager is the number 1 reason why people say they're leaving a company. That's not the case. I mean, they are leaving, but it's not they're leaving because of their manager. It's leaving because what their manager is stopping them from doing, right? So once you understand that, when you want that CTO, you need to make sure that you talk to the needs of that CTO. So most people in computer science love solving problems, right? They love solving problems. They are a bit black and white, so they don't tend to, sometimes they can really struggle with politics, but they love solving problems. In a big corporate, what you get is a lot of politics and a lot of problems, so that can be good. But what could be a problem is the politics can get in the way of solving problems, and they don't often get the freedom they maybe want, and they get all the bullshit that goes along with that. So what you can offer in a startup, though, is much more flexibility. So you can still give them really cool problems, but you can also give them the power. Remember that first one I started, the power to make decisions, the power to go in their own direction. You can give them the opportunity for real impact without bureaucracy, without, in division fighting, the politics which stop things happening. They can actually make impact with their work, with their outcome. You can give them the opportunity and freedom to learn. So you can say, look, you want to go and find out about the next 3 awesome AI technologies that are out there? Go and do it. Cool, man. Go and find out. Go and learn about that. We're absolutely going to support that. And also then you may also be able to offer them some work-life balance. They may be having a baby, right? And they don't know what's about to hit them, right, Joe? And they have no idea. And that baby comes along and, oh my God, they just need to work from home like Thursday, Friday, or they need to have a day off. And as a smaller organization, you could probably accommodate that. And then finally, the teamwork. If you've been hiring really well, then what you can do is say, look, come and join my team. We're like really great people, all focused on like no politics. We're focused on solving really interesting problems. We're all really bright. We're here for a purpose and reason. Do you see what I mean? So what I'm doing here is I'm connecting really much more on both the emotion and logical side of things. So if you're going to be hiring, make sure you sell what is actually good about your organization, not kind of what a lot of the cliches that people go with. Because you'd be surprised how many times people sell the wrong thing about their organization or what they have.
Mm-hmm. That is basically like the marketing part. How would you recommend to actually kind of carve out the job that this person will be having? Because in a startup you have to keep in mind for the next 6 months you're hiring for this position, and there should be a 100% match if you like to in this position, but after half a year the position may change, the requirements may change because you you hired 50% more people after your next VC funding. So how would you recommend to approach that and be open to the people that you talk to, so their role may change, they may need to adapt? This kind of adaptability, this agile mindset, can you interview for that? Can you search for that? Do you need that?
It's a great set of questions. There's a lot of them, and it's I come back to my earlier point about the values that you hire for, Joe, right? Humility, integrity, assertiveness, resilience. If you unpick those components, right? If you get somebody that is really a humble person, they're generally going to be the humility is the antidote to the ego, right? And the ego is the thing that stops you from learning. I'm comfortable with who I am. I'm the big guy. I know what I know. I don't need to learn something new. The humility goes, I'm actually okay with changing what I think. I'm okay with actually focusing on the idea instead of like me getting the recognition. And so in that person, in that value, you get somebody who's much more flexible. And they should be there for the mission. They've got the integrity that they joined your firm for the mission, right? And they've got the resilience that they're prepared to change. So if you relentlessly focus on the values that you know, then you will get somebody who can move along in a journey with you and your organization. It's when you get the person who's wrong. But also, I will say this, for number one disclaimer, if the role stops being right for someone, it stops being right for someone. Let them go with grace. If they need to leave your organization, they need to leave your organization. That's okay. And a lot of founders, young hiring people get this. This is a problem. They don't like firing people, or they don't like letting people go. But there's a recognition. If it's the right time, it's the right time to go. So that's my other disclaimer I'll add. But number one thing, back to your original point, how do you get it right for 12 months down the line, 18 months down the line? The simple answer is you're never going to know what's coming. So just be relentless in getting people who match your values. Right? Get them there, get smart people who match your values, and then they will be people who can stick with you for a very long time. I can talk you through how I would interview for something like resilience. If like your listeners are going, oh God, this is the head I'm talking about this, but how do I actually do it, right? Do you want me to give you a quick example how we might interview for resilience, for example?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
All right. So you're sitting in front of me and you, Joe. You turn up at my office, right? And I would do the introduction, you'd talk to yourself, and I'd say, okay, so resilience, first of all, kind of bit of background. Resilience, for me, requires motivation, right? So to be resilient, your motivational fire still needs to keep burning. So what I need to know is what motivates you. Why are you sitting in front of me, Joe? And the way that I would access that is by asking you, why are you leaving your current company? Why do you want to leave? And I'll shut up. And usually what I'm going to get from that person is a number of different reasons. I'm not being recognized for my work. I'm just working too many hours and my boss is killing me. That's a teamwork one. I'm not getting recognized for my work. And I keep doing great stuff and it just never happens. That's impact. I want to lead more people. I want to have more say in the work that we do. That's a power person. So I'm starting to access their motivations, right? And then I know if my role specifically, I'd ask them some more follow-up. Okay, so what is it about your lack of opportunity in your work that's really frustrating you? Get them to explain that. Okay, well, why are you frustrated about that specific element? And they get them to explain it a bit more. And I'd really start to ask them follow-up leveling down questions. And I'd hope at that point I'd get a much clearer understanding of why that candidate is sitting in front of me. They would have gone through a journey with me. I would have found out, the reflection that led to the abstraction. It's a really important sort of, heuristic if you want. You want to know the reflection that led to the abstraction there, what led them to that idea. And then I have an opportunity to match them with my job. So now I know, Joe, if I've got a job which you want, which is like highly flexible, gives you time to be at home, it gives you an opportunity to learn and be out in the market speaking to people and making decisions for yourself, I can boom, Joe, I've got the job for you, my friend. Come work with me because I know it matches with your motivations. And then I'm going to have somebody who's going to be resilient because their motivational fire will keep on burning even when it's raining, because I will have a role which directly speaks to what they want.
I see. Very interesting. What I had now in my mind is, because we will have many interested entrepreneurs listening to this, not necessarily all from the insurance background. How would you recommend them approaching to look for a headhunter? What are good signs? Because personal experience, there is a lot out there, and they'll call you. They have one job. They look if there's a match. They talk to you shortly. They forward the CV. Then they send you to an interview, and then they get some cash, and that's everything they want. So how can you avoid, in the position of an entrepreneur, to have someone who sends you like 15 people, you don't hire anyone, and you have to pay for every interview? How do you avoid that?
Well, there you go. That's the big question, right? Always. How do you find great people in your life to work with? I was asked once, if I'm hiring a contractor, do I have to be as picky with my contract as I would be with a full-time employee? I'm like, hell yeah. Of course you should. Somebody out in the market, like a contractor that you're working with, is supplying a service to you, they should still hold the same values that you hold. So you should be as relentless in selecting those like contractors, third parties, as you are in hiring an employee. So first of all, you need to be prepared to kiss some frogs and be like, you're not working with me, my friend, okay? You do not sit with the values that I have. How do you do that practically? Well, if you're on LinkedIn, look for the people who are posting good content. Look at the people who are talking with interest and thoughtfulness and, really out there. And there's lots of headhunters who actually care about their sector, who are trying to be part of the intellectual journey of their sector, and then try to select firms who are incentivized in the right way to work with you. So what I mean by that is they're not just about sending you down 15 CVs, let you do the assessment. Try and partner with somebody who's actually going to do some of the work with you, challenge you on the vacancy description, get you to talk to you. And you'll know that by as soon as you get on the phone. I mean, Joe, this is how we got to meet each other, right? I like to think that if you talk to somebody, you can get a sense of their quality. And it goes both ways, right? I get to know you as a candidate, and I get to know, when I work with you all the way, I'm like, it's a thoughtful guy, someone who has humility and integrity, someone I can trust to work with as a headhunter. And I'm starting to match you up in with my values. And I'd hope that's what would happen between the two of us. And so that's how I think you should select your headhunter. Be relentless. Because you don't want somebody out in the market who doesn't share the same values as you. So kiss some frogs till you find that prince. Sorry, Joe. I will say, look, there's a flip side to this, right? If you're not working with a headhunter and you're out in the market, I know it was one thing we wanted to talk about, and I would love to say that if you're out in the market looking for a job and you're looking to get into the startup scene as well, it's one of the questions I get asked all the time. And how do you do that? Is it through a headhunter? Yes, that's one of the routes to go. But I think also you need to be prepared to do some work in repositioning yourself. Now, I think in our earlier chat, I spoke to you about sort of the 80-20 rule. And I really believe in this, that 20% of your efforts are going to deliver sort of 80% of your results. And when it comes to trying to change into the startup scene and find a new job, that is so the case. You need to know, you don't know which ones what part of your efforts are going to deliver that success in getting into the startup industry, but you need to do as many things as you possibly can to give yourself an opportunity. So, but if I had to drill it down to 3 top tips for your listeners, like you're trying to go and work with an amazing startup, you want to get into that organization and do something really cool. Well, top 3 things you need to do, in my opinion, is you need to create a great story. Why, Joe? Why should, like a head of risk management, for example, from a big investment bank be given an opportunity in a 5-person startup selling banking products or insurance or doing something in AI, right? you need to have a story why that's relevant. And then you need to practice telling that story, creating that narrative, why I want to be here. You need to practice with your wife, with your best mate, with your friend, whoever it is. And then you need to get yourself into situations where you can tell that story as much as possible. Because it is going to be this moment, really, where I really believe this, that as Jim Collins said in Good to Great, maybe some of your listeners will know Jim Collins' work. He said that all of the great companies that went from good to great, they all had a bit of luck. But there was never disproportionate amount of luck between the companies who never made it and the companies that made it. The difference was the great companies were awesome at taking advantage of their luck, right? And this is what happens in job searching. So when you happen to bump into, in the elevator, the guy that you've been wanting to speak to for 6 months, you better have practiced your story. You better have your pitch down, that you can tell him why or her why you want to work for them, and then get them to say, come to my office and let's have a coffee. All right, that is why I come back to it. You practice telling a story, you have to create a story, practice it, and then get yourself in a situation where you can tell that story to people who matter on your journey. So there's my quick couple of minute how you do it. Either way, use a headhunter, pick a headhunter if you're a company really well. If you're looking to get into the sector, work hard at it. Do something like you, Joe, who have been a great role model to the industry. And guys, if you're listening and you're looking at Joe, you should use Joe. Honestly, Joe, you should use you as an example. I remember meeting you back in 2011, and you didn't have a podcast then, but you knew you wanted to be at startup, right? And look how much time and energy and investment you've made, right? So could you point? Let me ask you, if you don't mind me asking you back a question, unless you kind of don't mind. Can you pinpoint the one thing that you did that got you to where you are now with all of these 67 odd thousand subscribers and unique listeners that you have in this position? Is it just one thing?
Well, if I would need to pin it to just one thing, I would pin it to consistency. I try to have all my social media tools filled every week. I have 2 tools running: European time, US time zone. Every time there's social media content, every week there's a new podcast. Every time I'm looking for new podcast guests, so I'm continually working on it. And guys, believe me, I didn't start out with 70,000 subscribers. I do believe my first few podcasts that I do believe are still online. If you go down here, there are more than 160 episodes of Startuprad.io. I do believe the first few podcasts been listened to by 5 people, 6 people, 10 people. But as Will said, it's important to have somebody you can work with, and a big mental high five to Christian in New York here, because he's always there. He's never on time, but he'll be there. He's prepared, and we'll do great recording. And I'm not sure if I would have done it without him. He actually found me. I don't think he was one of the first 5 listeners, but one of the first 5,000. And just keep working. And it's not easy. It's no overnight success, but if you work hard, you may one day become one. It's also not most definitely.
Yeah, and that I love in that there's a real truth, right? Because if you would have rewound all the way back to you when you released your first 5 episodes, and if you would have said, okay, how are you going to get from there to where you are now, you probably would have told an entirely different strategy. But the way that we take those routes to get to where we are is just, it's so unknown. And it just takes effort. It takes you putting yourself in the right situation. It takes you being prepared to take advantage of the best success and best luck that you can get. And that's what exactly it is like when you're a founder. Surround yourself with great people. When it comes to trying to get into these sector, surround yourself with great people, right? That's what it is. There's 2 unique things, right? And then you just got to kind of repeat it and then keep working at it, and be relentless in the values that you have. I would always say that. And I hope, I know you now, like all these years later, and you're still the same generous guy. Let's a bloody headhunter come on your podcast and talk about these reasons. But I think people see that, and I think that's what you should continually look for. Founder, whoever you are out there, trust in your vision, trust in your values, and stick to them as you're hiring your people, because you don't know where you're going to be going in the next 5 years, and you want to make sure that you're doing it with the right people. So just be relentless in that.
And keep learning. Keep learning is very important for me. We are now talking for almost 40 minutes. That's actually approximately the time we had the interview, which didn't have any sound on my side. By the way, thank you for taking the time on a Saturday to take 80 minutes to do an interview with me. Just one question, like a goofball question. It will be actually a different one from the other interview. For which position would you like to headhunt? Which position out there or imaginary position would you like to search for people? What would be a really great challenge for you?
Oh, that is a good question. And you know what comes to mind? I mean, listeners will know this, but I'm a soccer coach, football coach in England. I completing my FA level 2 coach when I coach my son's football team. I've always had a dream of maybe being like an agent or representative for sports stars and football stars maybe, but also particularly for managers. I would love to try and headhunt and place like the manager of my beloved Aston Villa. Dean Smith is doing a good job at the moment, so maybe I wouldn't replace him, but replacing like a really key football team's manager, I would love to get that, just because I'm so invested in the sport and I love it so much. So that would be something I'd love to do. I'd be really excited by that. That's what comes to mind straight away.
Sounds very good. Everybody who'd like to learn more, you can go down here in the show notes. Either if you listen to it or watching this, there's a link to the original blog post we do with this YouTube interview, and there you'll find the LinkedIn profile of William, as well as many links we've been talking about, like 80-20 principle, Pareto principle, reinsurance, and all of that stuff. And of course, you'll be able to find his website, reach out to him directly on LinkedIn, and all that stuff. Only thing left for me to say is thank you very much. It was a pleasure interviewing you again.
Joe, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for giving me time. And like with that, you can find me on LinkedIn under William Laitinen, and I'm on Twitter as well, William Laitinen. I think you can find me and drop me an email at exigeinternational.com, william@exigeinternational.com. Always happy to have a chat. So here I am. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.